Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the TownSteel CDC-76-S-26D. This is a grade 1 cylindrical privacy set is what it is. This is a lot of lock. This weighs about 4.8 pounds, at least it does with the box that it's in. And this would be appropriate for heavy-duty for applications that require a grade 1 lock, meaning a lock that's been found to be compliant with the most stringent of duty rating. It's past 1 million cycles. That's the highest caliber criteria that there is, that exists in the industry, grade 1. That's an ANSI standard, 1 million cycles. It's most likely a lock, like so many others, in all fairness to all others, the lock could last several million cycles, and certainly it would. It's just found to be compliant to 1 million cycles. I've always thought, and I'm sure other people have as well, there should be a grade above that. That's 5 million cycles, things of that nature. A 1 million cycle count isn't all that high if you look at an application like a hospital, over a decade. That kind of thing. Certainly, you'd want to build a hospital and expect that your door hardware is going to last several years, decades most likely, in fact. So anyway, not to get sidetracked, this certainly seems like a very nice quality lock. When I take all of the components out of the box and inspect it, I immediately start to develop an opinion over the lock. It's an attractive lock. Typical rose, standard lever design. This is their S lever, or sentinel lever is what they call this. Returns back to with a half of an inch of the door face so that it is compliant with handicap ADA requirements. And the opinion that I've begun to develop as soon as I saw this is that, okay, this is a pretty simple and straightforward lock, meaning there's a latch bolt, okay? A spring latch. This is for a square edge door. This is not a beveled edge. This faceplate does not float. So technically, in a beveled edge door, when this goes together, this is not going to be sitting inside of the retracting hub exactly how one might desire it to fit optimally. That goes on very easy. I don't know why I was struggling with it. That latch bolt's going to be a little bit tipped back or forth. I don't think that's going to really cause trouble for the operation of the lock, but I did notice that it's a fixed front. Other manufacturers will have either floating faceplates or square or beveled, is the bottom line. But simple, straightforward, 2 3/4 back set. You're also going to get installation instructions, which we'll go over. You're going to get a 4 7/8 strike. Let's take some basic dimensional properties. We'll start with the strike. It's in my hand. It's 4 7/8 tall. The overall width is about 1 7/8 inches. That's not how strikes are measured. They're measured from the center line of the screw hole to the edge of the lip, and this is about 1 1/4 inches. I'm sure that it's exactly 1 1/4 inches. That latch bolt's going to be 2 1/4 tall, 1 1/8 inches wide. That's a standard size for a what we would call a 161 prep. This would actually take a modified 161. 161 prep means 2 1/8 inch hole, 2 3/4 back set, 2 1/4 by 1 1/8 edge prep, 5/32 deep. Modified means we're going to modify it for the lever through bolt holes that'll be at 12 6. Okay, we'll have a template certainly for that. Then the only other thing that's here, and the opinion that I've developed is, okay, this is a simple lock to put together. There are only 6 screws. You need 2 for the strike, 2 for the latch bolt, then you need 2 for the lock body. Then there's the pin release tool that's in there as well, which you will need with this, no doubt. And the reason you'll need it is the inside lever will have to come off, so the rose scalp plate can come off, so that you can get the screws underneath here. And we'll go over it. Well, let's just go over it now, since I'm talking about it. We'll take that pin release tool out. If it was a keyed function and you needed to rekey the lock, or for whatever reason remove the exterior trim, which you really wouldn't need to do unless there was a purpose to doing that. Okay. The plate does come off, believe me. Frankly, there are times when it's easier to do when it's literally on the door. I don't believe that this would be one of the times. Although, I did have a client last week. They couldn't get the lever off on a keyed function, and they're pushing the pin release tool in and just can't get it off. Sometimes what happens, it's very rare, but sometimes that tab cutout that's right there, the tip of my finger, on the other side of this little hole, sometimes because the machining tolerances are so tight, the client needed to put it on the door actually in order to be able to depress the pin and pull the trim off. Once they got it on the door, it's just hard juggling pieces in your hand. Well, anyway, that rose came off without any trouble. Your two screws are going to go there, tighten the lock body together, and you're done. I mean, that's all there is to this. I wish, I don't wish that there was more to it. There's not. And to me, that's a hallmark of a piece of hardware that, is probably worthy of consideration because it's simple and straightforward. It goes together. It works. That's the bottom line. Okay. So, yeah. All right. So I like what's happening here, and I'll tell you why. What they have going here is, I'm going to pull that rose off again. Okay, I want to show you one thing that I like about this lock. And what I like about the lock is this. Taking it apart, you've got your 161, you've modified it with the holes at 12 and 6 o'clock. Your latch bolt goes in first. Okay, that's easy. Then the lock comes in. The next thing you do is you put this plate with these two posts so that the screws will go through those holes, which will go into the posts, but it has these two pins on it, here and here. Well, those two pins go right into the chassis. Okay. Now, what's the point of that? Well, you've got two screws that are going to go through this plate to the lever through bolt holes. That's fine. Remember, with a lever, you put a lot of rotational force, so over time, locks have a tendency to rotate on the door, and that's why these modified preps are required, whether it be at 12 and 6 or at 145 and 745, whatever the lock manufacturer is, depending on the side of the door you're looking on. These lever through bolt posts are meant to help the rotational creeping of the lock. Well, what I like about this is you've got that plate with these two pins that the screws are going through, securing it together, locked to the chassis itself. Okay, so the chassis itself is, once it's installed, is also giving support to keep the thing vertical, is the bottom line. That's what I like about this lock, is what I was basically trying to drive at. Just putting this quickly back together. Okay, now, this is a 76 is the part number. Now that's interesting because 76 is actually the ANSI number. This is an F76 function. If you were to look up F76 from any lock manufacturer who makes a privacy function like this, you're able to understand the function. So, sure, it's a 76 function by TownSteel, and by another manufacturer, it's a different part number, but all the other manufacturers, and only TownSteel does this that I'm aware of, uses the ANSI number. Meaning, okay, what's the part number for Schlage? What is it for Yale? What is it for Corbin, Russwin, Sargent, on down the line? All of those people make a grade 1 privacy set, but then you have to flip to the catalog to see what the ANSI function is. Well, TownSteel just simply uses the ANSI number. Now, why is that important? Because in a specification, when you are going through the specs to figure out what you are obligated to supply or quote initially, it's going to give you an ANSI number. And that's one little nuance that's pretty interesting. To me, it's amazing that, well, someone like Schlage, for instance, that's been making locks for 100 years, someone like Yale, who's been making locks for 160 years, yeah, they can't just change their function codes. You know, a 40 function from Schlage has been a 40 function from Schlage since World War II, or before, would be my guess. But it's smart that TownSteel chose to use a universal like that. Not that people have ANSI numbers memorized, but people who write specifications probably most definitely have lots of them memorized. Now, this is, so it's a privacy function. Basically, you know, when the button is pushed on the inside, the outside is rigid, except this is a clutch style. Clutched, regular trim, single cylinder privacy. So clutch. It's locked right now. That's the button out, that's the button in. Button out, it's unlocked. And now what you'll notice is that it will retract the retracting hub. Okay? You go ahead and push that in to lock it. I rotate the outside trim, it no longer retracts that hub. That's the clutch feature. So that's the advantage of this lock as well. Why do you want that? Well, you may want that because it's been found that it's less of a it's a deterrent to people vandalizing the lock. If there's no resistance on the lever to somebody hanging on it when the door is locked, there's really nothing to break because it's meant to operate that way. So that's another advantage of this particular lock. Now, TownSteel doesn't have a stranglehold on clutched locks. You'll very commonly see it in storeroom locks. You know, and it's a vandal-resistant feature where that outside trim will move even when it's in the locked condition. Okay, so that's an advantage. This is in the 626 finish. Much of this is this is stainless steel. That's probably die-cast zinc. They do an excellent job getting a matched finish on that. I'm going to say that it's not identical, but it is so close to being identical that you can't really. It would be well below detection of anybody looking at that. That would be my guess that these are die-cast zinc. A very heavy, dense material, inexpensive, takes a very nice finish. Let's do, in terms of dimension, let's just take a closer look at the lever dimension as well. Overall, about 5 1/4. Overall height, about 1 1/16 inches. You know, and it's going to return back to within a 1/2 inch of the face of the door. I think we've covered the tour de force of all of the parts that are included here. You can't get the screws wrong, really. There's 3 pair of 2 screws. You can't put them in the wrong place. They just won't go, so I won't bother to go over that. Let's switch to the screen view now, and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting information. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Okay, let's take a closer look at what we have going on here with the TownSteel Grade 1 privacy. Here are some images that we have posted here. Let's take a closer look at them. There's the label. And contents of the box. Like I said, very simple. There's not much to this. Your exterior emergency release coin turn, that might be called, shown a different perspective, and and a big giant thumbprint. I apologize. Showing the retracting hub, the chassis of the lock, and let's take a look at another view on that. Showing the lever, latch bolt. Pretty important to take note. It's UL listed, has capital letter F. That means it's been tested to positive pressure design for doors. A lowercase f means neutral pressure, the prior standard. Positive pressure is the current standard. That will be indicated with a capital letter F. The label that would be on the latch bolt, that's pretty common to have a label on a latch bolt, a physical label. It on the face though tells you that it's listed. There's more information on the physical label, such as the record locator, which is likely this R16, and I have the latch bolt in my hand. It's R16796. If you were to call the testing laboratory and reference that record locator, they'd be able to tell you about this exact lock. There's your 4 7/8 strike. It's 1 1/4. Center line of the holes to the edge of the lip is 1 1/4. Then your accessory package, just your bolts. Okay, now extended description information down below. This CD series, CD Cylindrical, is meant for institutional, government, military, retail, multifamily applications. Independent torsion spring design provides effective lever support. Yeah, what they're saying there is in the Rose assembly itself, there's a lever return spring. You're not relying on the springs from the retracting hub. There are springs in this assembly and springs here. Without those springs, the lever just wouldn't return to horizontal. In my opinion, this type of statement is like saying our car includes a steering wheel. Yes, of course it does. It won't turn without it. Available in clutched and non-clutched. Non-clutched is more common just because that's the original design. Fast and easy installation. That I can agree to. It's grade 1, which means it's 1,000,000 cycles and fire rated. I wouldn't say that it's single cylinder. I don't know where that's coming from. It shouldn't be called single cylinder. Regular trim, privacy function, sentinel lever. That's what the sentinel lever looks like. Satin chrome finish. Let's go through these documents in no particular order. The how to order, pretty simple and straightforward. You select your function. Pardon me. You select your series. Clutch, non-clutch, interchangeable core, clutch, interchangeable core, non-clutch, function examples, lever trim, finish, back set, any keying if that applies. It's going to all collude to make up a relatively simple part number. Functions are here. That's just a one-page document. This is a cylindrical lock, and what that means is it is a lock it goes through a hole that's bored through a door, and as a result of it being a cylindrical lock, compared to the two mortise locks, there are far less available potential functions in cylindrical locks because there's that much less real estate in which you have to work to pack all the parts needed for multiple functions. If you compared this function chart to a TownSteel mortise lock function chart, this is about 25% of the size of a mortise lock function. So it could be that you have a function that your project requires that you cannot accommodate in a cylindrical lock. That's not uncommon. Here they are all listed. CDC 76. There's our privacy. There's the operational description of what a privacy is. The next document is template. That's simple and straightforward. 2 1/8 inch hole, 2 3/8 or 2 3/4 back set, or 5 inch. I believe there may have been a 3 3/4 option as well. Yeah, 3 3/4 they have. And that's the dimension from the edge of the door to the center of the lock, center of the lock hole. Not the edge of the door per se. I was clearly just talking about this. You have 4 door edges here: square, beveled, rabbited, radiused. Center line is referenced from the center of the thickness back to the hole. 2 3/4 from here to here is the same as here to here, but that's not true here to here. Center of the door thickness is what is most important with that. So fold the door edge over, sure, assuming it's a square edge door. If it's a beveled edge door, this paper template's not going to work as well. You've got your lever through bolt holes. You'll have these semicircles at 9 and 3 o'clock. You're definitely going to need those if it is a metal door. There are small prongs Actually, there's one right here, which would be normal for it to be in that position. And a wood door, that'll just bite into the surface. But a steel door, no matter how much you tighten that lock, you won't get that prong to fit, to dimple into a steel door. So you'll need to prep that if it's a metal door. If you're drilling a hole yourself, your door is probably already prepped. Now let's also take a look at the product brochure. We'll stay on that for a moment. This is going to be an overview of their cylindrical grade 1 locks. A 7-page document. I won't go over it, but you can certainly review all of this. The specifications of the lock, should you need to convey what you want and you're specifying TownSteel, this would be good information to use. Different lever designs, Sentinel, Quest, Gala. This is a Sentinel lever with a Schlage large full-size removable core prep. An exploded view of what these locks look like. The how to order page is here. Your function chart, you can see that we just cut that document up. Installation guide. Yeah, very brief. I'm not surprised that this is a very brief document. The first page is going to show you the exploded drawing of what that lock looks like. Defines the names for the items so that when you read, assuming you're going to read the installation instructions, when they say outside mounting plate, this is the document that you refer to. The rest of this is how to prep the door for your lock. I won't go over that. Reach out if you need help with that. This can accommodate different door thicknesses. Okay. If you've got an 1 3/4 thick door, you likely have to do nothing. It will go a little bit larger, up to 2 inch. But what's nice is that it will also go down to 1 3/8 with no additional parts. Not every lock manufacturer for grade 1 cylindrical can say that. That's to be sure. TownSteel can. You're going to have to adjust the mounting plates according to step 6. You'll have to adjust that privacy, turn if your function has one. The only, a passage set won't. This privacy set does. It's got a push button on it. The plates have to be balanced on the chassis thickness, and that pin release tool also works as a measuring tool to tell you what you're set to when you have that plate rotated to the proper depth. And what I mean by that is, this is the outside plate. You can see that there are threads on the stem here. You'll remove all of that and thread that plate to the proper setting or position so that it will mimic the door thickness as shown here in step 6. Latch bolt always goes in first. Your outside assembly, your inside plate, your inside what they call a rose liner, the screws. Tighten that up, not overly tighten it, otherwise the latch won't work fluidly. The lever may not come back to horizontal. Put your scalp plate on, put your lever on, and you're done. Very simple and straightforward. It's unlikely that you'll need to adjust this for door thickness, but it's important to know that it can handle 1 3/8 thick doors right out of the box. Now there's a link below this video, as seen here, to the manufacturer's page. And from here you can pull up not only all of the TownSteel products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. Now, perhaps the last thing that I might mention about TownSteel is that they're a simple, no-nonsense company. You send them a PO, they ship the material out. It's generally very easy to work with them. The only thing that I would add about that is they have a very large minimum order requirement. Buying one of these locks is not going to hit their minimum order requirement. And it's indicated in the website what it is, so be mindful of that. If the material is not kept in stock here by us, and currently we don't stock much, if any, TownSteel, so we'll be drop shipping it, at least at this time. So check with us if it's not clear what the minimum order is, especially if your schedule requires a very particular completion date. Don't want any gray area hanging out there in terms of how long it'll take to get something, because they're going to have it in stock. They're importing this stuff from overseas, and they're bringing in it by, it'll either be in stock and they'll have a container load of it, or it's on back order for 16 weeks. But it does seem to be a very fair quality lock. There's no doubt about that. I personally wouldn't hesitate suggesting that you consider it. Given all of the other choices that are out there on the market, this is, and I want to take a look at the price. This is an extremely attractive option. Extremely attractive option price-wise when you compare it to other locks that you'll get that are probably grade 2 in the same price rather than grade 1. The downside of locks like TownSteel's and other people who import the material is you can probably buy the latch bolt. You can certainly get strike plates, but what you're not going to get are the springs for the retracting hub. Okay, you're not going to get replacement levers. When this button, when the door is thrown so violently in the wall and it crushes this button, you can't buy a replacement button. The point is, the one downside of imported locks is you're not usually able to get replacement parts at all. So that's a downside of the relative inexpensive approach to being able to buy a lock like this. The long-term cost may be higher than otherwise, because you're replacing locks outright and you're not able to buy just $10 or $20 or $50 parts to keep it working. That's a bit of a stretch for me to mention that as a downside when most people don't consider the overall cost, but being engaged in selling replacement parts and knowing what that kind of stuff costs and being able to solve a client's problem with a $10 part rather than a $200 lock, that's good. So I do mention it only because much of what I do on a daily basis is help people get parts for their exits, closers, lock sets, whatever it is. There you go. Any questions on the TownSteel CDC 76 and an S lever and a 626 or 26D finish, or any other TownSteel product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.